Every major RV builder in America has been getting the same message from the market. Slow down, cut risk, protect cash, and do not launch anything expensive unless you absolutely have to. Dealer lots are still carrying too much inventory. Financing costs have pushed monthly payments higher. Buyers have become cautious, and manufacturers across the industry have been trimming production instead of adding complexity. So what did Tiffin Motorhomes do? It went the other way. Instead of shrinking, it introduced an entirely new luxury motorhome identity, its first genuinely new Class A diesel line in roughly 36 years, and it is doing it in one of the most difficult RV markets in recent memory. Not a cosmetic update, not a renamed version of an existing coach. A new brand called Cornerstone, built to sit above Tiffin's current top-tier products and compete at the highest end of American luxury motorhomes. That is the part that changes the conversation, because this is not simply a new model announcement. It is a company making a statement about where it believes the market is going, while most of its competitors are still trying to survive where the market is today. And the more you look at the timing, the ownership structure, the manufacturing moves, and the people behind this decision, the less it looks like a random product launch, and the more it looks like Tiffin is trying to redefine the rules of the luxury RV game before the rest of the industry is ready to move. To understand why that matters, you have to understand what Tiffin represents in the first place, because this is not a brand that appeared because a corporate strategy team found an empty price point on a spreadsheet. The roots go back to 1941 in Red Bay, Alabama, a small town that became inseparable from the Tiffin name. Bob Tiffin built the company around a reputation for hands-on craftsmanship, real wood cabinetry, hand-laid fiberglass, strong fit and finish, and the kind of product identity that made the coaches aspirational for serious RV owners. For decades, the appeal was not just that Tiffin built expensive motorhomes. Plenty of companies can build expensive products. The appeal was that buyers felt there was a family, a town, and a manufacturing culture behind the badge. That distinction became even more important in 2020, when Thor Industries acquired Tiffin as part of a broader deal reportedly valued around $300 million. Thor is not a small operator. It controls major RV brands including Airstream, Jayco, and Keystone, and for longtime Tiffin owners, the obvious fear was familiar. A beloved family company gets absorbed by a conglomerate, quality gets standardized, costs get squeezed, and eventually the product starts looking like everything else on the lot. But Tiffin did not follow the usual script. Bob Tiffin remained involved. Van Tiffin stayed connected as a senior manufacturing advisor. Trent Tiffin continued to play a role. The company changed ownership on paper, but the people who had spent decades building its reputation did not simply cash out and disappear. That matters because the move Tiffin is making now only makes sense if you believe the company still thinks with a longer horizon than the average corporate product cycle. A public company looking at a soft market usually asks how to reduce exposure. A family-run manufacturing culture often asks a different question. What can we build now that will matter when the market comes back? And right now, that difference in mindset could be everything. The environment is brutal enough that most executives would have a strong argument for doing nothing. Interest rates have made financing a large motorhome dramatically more expensive. A diesel pusher that costs $300,000, $600,000, or more than $1 million is not just affected by the sticker price. It is affected by what that price feels like every month when financing moves against the buyer. Add several $100s to a payment, and suddenly a customer who was ready to buy starts waiting. That slowdown has collided with another problem: inventory left over from the pandemic-era surge. Dealers ordered heavily when demand was exploding. Manufacturers built aggressively to keep up, and then the market cooled faster than many companies expected. The result has been crowded lots, aging units, discount pressure, and dealers telling factories they do not need another wave of coaches arriving before the current inventory moves. Across the RV industry, the response has included layoffs, plant closures, slower production schedules, tighter model lineups, and far less enthusiasm for expensive clean sheet development programs. On top of that, tariffs and unstable material costs have complicated pricing on aluminum, appliances, chassis components, electronics, and other inputs that go into a modern motorhome. That makes planning a product 1 or 2 years ahead much harder, especially when no one can predict exactly what financing conditions or buyer confidence will look like when that coach finally reaches the lot. Conventional logic says this is the moment to protect proven products, reduce the number of bets, and wait for the market to become easier. Tiffin looked at the same data and apparently reached the opposite conclusion. Instead of asking how little it could risk, it asked how much strategic ground it could gain while everyone else was cautious. And that is where the Cornerstone story begins. The trigger came through a major shift involving Integra Coach, the diesel pusher brand based in Middlebury, Indiana. Integra announced that its Class A diesel motorhome production would transition to Tiffin and move to the Red Bay facility. A normal corporate response could have been simple: absorb the existing products, rationalize the lineup, maybe change some badges, and use the added volume to create efficiencies. Tiffin chose something more ambitious. Out of that transition, the company created Cornerstone as a completely separate identity. Tiffin has been clear that this is not just Integra hardware wearing a new logo, and it is not a new trim level inside the familiar Tiffin family. Cornerstone is intended to have its own design language, its own philosophy, and its own place in the market. It will share the craftsmanship and manufacturing base of Red Bay, but it is being positioned as a distinct brand rather than another rung inside the existing lineup. That is an unusually aggressive move in a conservative segment where buyers often value continuity as much as innovation. Tiffin has spent decades building recognition around names like Allegro Bus and Zephyr, yet instead of stretching one of those identities upward, it is creating something new and asking the market to judge it on its own terms. The rarity makes the move even more significant. The company has described this as its first genuinely new Class A diesel line in about 36 years. Think about how much has changed in the RV industry over that span: chassis technology, digital controls, expectations for residential interiors, heating systems, steering assistance, connected diagnostics, buyer demographics, dealer networks, and pricing. Tiffin has evolved through all of it by refining existing product families. Cornerstone breaks that pattern. The launch plan itself is also more controlled than reckless. The company has indicated it will roll the brand out one model at a time instead of flooding dealers with inventory. The first model, referred to as Series 6, was slated to appear at the Music City Motorhome Expo in Nashville in the summer of 2026 after an earlier private pre-launch gathering for dealers and serious enthusiasts in March. That measured approach matters. Tiffin is taking a big strategic swing, but it is not pretending the market can absorb unlimited product. The company is trying to create exclusivity, learn from the first release, and scale deliberately. And the most important positioning decision is simple. Cornerstone is supposed to sit above the current Tiffin lineup, not replace it. That means the company is not abandoning Allegro, Phaeton, Zephyr, Wayfarer, or the rest of the products people already recognize. It is creating a new ceiling. Tiffin's current flagships already offer the kind of equipment buyers expect in six-figure and high-end diesel coaches, including residential interiors, sophisticated heating systems, premium chassis, digital control networks, and increasingly advanced driving technology. Cornerstone is being designed to go beyond even that. In a market where many manufacturers are removing features, simplifying trims, or chasing lower price points to keep units moving, Tiffin is deliberately pushing upward. That is why this launch matters more than another floor plan or facelift. It is a test of whether there is still room in this market for a company to win through confidence rather than caution. Of course, bold strategy always looks cleaner from a distance than it does inside the factory, and Tiffin has been dealing with real turbulence behind the scenes. In February 2026, Lee Tiffin resigned as president of Tiffin Motorhomes after serving in that position since the middle of 2021. The company emphasized that he was not terminated and that he chose to pursue a new opportunity with National Indoor RV Centers, one of the largest luxury motorhome dealer groups in the country. That connection immediately drew attention because National Indoor RV Centers also hosted the Cornerstone pre-launch event in Tennessee. In a tight industry, relationships like that naturally generate questions. Was the leadership change a sign the launch had internal problems? Was the family stepping away? Was Thor preparing to exert more direct control now that one of the most visible Tiffin executives had left? Tiffin responded directly and said operations were continuing normally, the family remained involved, and planned launches, including Cornerstone, were still on track. The company even issued clarification aimed at owners, which tells you how sensitive this moment is. Tiffin understands that its greatest asset is not simply manufacturing capacity, it is trust. If customers start to believe the family identity is becoming symbolic rather than operational, the entire premium story becomes harder to defend. And the leadership change was not the only disruption. Tiffin also announced a significant manufacturing shift. A new Class C production line was planned for Red Bay while the company prepared to close its Winfield, Alabama facility. Around 140 jobs were affected, with roughly 30 to 40 workers offered the chance to transfer to Red Bay. Those numbers matter because strategy on a corporate slide can look like efficiency, while on the ground it means families deciding whether to relocate, change jobs, or leave an industry they may have worked in for years. Any serious analysis of Tiffin's expansion has to acknowledge that cost. At the same time, the manufacturing logic is easy to understand. Consolidating more production in Red Bay puts a larger share of the company's work near the most experienced labor, the deepest institutional knowledge, and the manufacturing culture that built Tiffin's reputation in the first place. At the level Cornerstone is targeting, small execution differences become enormous. Luxury buyers notice cabinet alignment, noise isolation, electrical integration, paint finish, slide operation, chassis behavior, service access, and every tiny detail that separates a beautiful brochure from a coach you can live in for months. Building more of that work under one roof can improve oversight, shorten communication paths, and make quality problems easier to catch before a coach leaves the plant. The risk is obvious too. More programs, more volume, a new brand, new product integration, and leadership changes all happening at once can stretch even a strong operation. Tiffin is effectively betting that concentration will create discipline rather than congestion. That is not guaranteed. But it is a much more interesting strategy than simply cutting until the market gets better. For buyers, the practical implications depend on where you sit. If you already own a Tiffin, the immediate message is continuity. The existing brands are not being erased to make room for Cornerstone. Allegro, Phaeton, Zephyr, Wayfarer, and the rest of the established range remain part of the plan. The thing worth watching is execution during the transition. Bringing more diesel production into Red Bay and launching a new premium identity inside the same manufacturing ecosystem creates pressure on labor, suppliers, service, and quality control. Tiffin says the consolidation is designed to strengthen quality, and that may prove true, but owners with service needs over the next year or two should pay attention to parts availability, appointment times, and whether production expansion creates any temporary strain. If you are shopping for a luxury diesel pusher, Cornerstone is harder to ignore. Buyers comparing top-end coaches from Newmar, Ford Travel, Integra, and Tiffin suddenly have a new platform to evaluate, and this one is being developed with the explicit goal of sitting above the products Tiffin already considers premium. That does not mean the first Cornerstone will automatically be the best coach in the segment. New platforms can have teething problems, new suppliers can create surprises, new electronics can look impressive at a show and become annoying after 6 months on the road. Serious luxury buyers know that reliability, serviceability, and dealer support matter just as much as polished interiors. But the technology direction is worth watching. Tiffin has already been integrating systems such as PowerGlide-related driving technology, steering assistance, and Spider digital controls that centralize diagnostics and coach functions through touchscreen interfaces. A clean sheet brand gives engineers more freedom to integrate those systems from the beginning, instead of adapting them around older architecture. That can produce a coach that feels more coherent rather than simply more complicated. For new RV buyers, the larger signal may be even more important than the product itself. In a contracting industry, healthy companies reveal themselves by what they are willing to invest in when demand is weak. Weak operators cancel development, stretch old platforms, and hope the next cycle saves them. Stronger operators can use a downturn to recruit talent, refine production, negotiate with suppliers, and prepare something that is ready when buyers return. Tiffin appears to believe this downturn is temporary and that the next expansion cycle will reward companies that kept building instead of going silent. That is a calculated bet, not a guarantee, but it tells you exactly how management sees its position. The company is not behaving like a manufacturer trying to survive another quarter. It is behaving like one trying to own a bigger share of the premium market 5 or 10 years from now. And that brings us to the real reason the title matters. Tiffin has not literally rewritten the laws of motorhome manufacturing. What it has changed is the strategic expectation. For years, the luxury RV market has rewarded incrementalism. Update the interior, add a screen, revise a floor plan, improve a chassis package, rename a trim. Keep the trusted badge and avoid giving loyal buyers a reason to hesitate. Cornerstone challenges that habit. Tiffin is saying that even in a soft market, even after a corporate acquisition, even during a leadership transition, and even while consolidating manufacturing, a legacy company can still create something new from the ground up and push it above its own established flagship. That forces competitors to make a choice. They can treat this as a risky vanity project and keep playing defense, or they can assume Tiffin sees an opening and respond before Cornerstone has time to define the next tier of American luxury coaches. If Cornerstone succeeds, the lesson will not be that every builder should launch a new brand during a downturn. The lesson will be that the safest moment to invest is not always the best moment to separate yourself. When everyone is expanding, innovation gets lost in the noise. When everyone is retreating, one serious move becomes impossible to ignore. Tiffin has the legacy, the Red Bay manufacturing base, the family involvement, Thor's resources, and now the Integra diesel transition, giving it a rare combination of credibility and opportunity. But the company still has to execute. The first coaches have to be excellent. The service experience has to match the price. The new identity has to feel genuinely different, not like marketing wrapped around familiar hardware. And the transition in Red Bay has to strengthen quality rather than dilute it. That is the pressure Tiffin has created for itself. The upside is enormous because a successful cornerstone could become the new benchmark people mention alongside the most respected names in luxury motorhomes. The downside is equally real because premium buyers are unforgiving when a product promises more than it delivers. So where does that leave the rest of us, watching one of the most unusual strategic bets in the RV industry unfold in real time? A company born in a small Alabama town in 1941, acquired by a giant corporation for roughly $300 million, still guided by the family that built its reputation, is taking diesel production from a respected outside brand, concentrating more manufacturing back at its historic home, and creating a new luxury identity above everything it already sells. It is doing this while interest rates are high, inventory is heavy, competitors are cautious, jobs are being reshuffled, and the market is telling manufacturers to take fewer chances. That contradiction is exactly why the move matters. Tiffin is not waiting for perfect conditions. It is betting that when conditions improve, buyers will remember who had the confidence to build the future before the future was obvious. Maybe Cornerstone becomes the coach that resets expectations for American luxury. Maybe it needs a few years of refinement before it earns that status. Either outcome will tell us something important about where this industry is going. And there is another reason this matters beyond Tiffin itself. Luxury motorhomes are reputation products. Buyers compare not only specifications, but the confidence behind the company standing behind them for years after delivery. A new flagship brand therefore becomes a promise about service, parts, engineering, resale value, and long-term support. Cornerstone will be judged on all of those things, not simply leather, screens, horsepower, or the first impression under show lights at an expo. The question Tiffin has now put in front of every competitor is much bigger than what features they can add next year. It is this: while everyone else is protecting what they already have, who is willing to build what comes next? If you were shopping at the top end of the diesel pusher market, would you wait to see what Cornerstone delivers, or would you trust the proven names and let somebody else be first? Drop your take in the comments, and if you want more stories that connect the vehicles, the manufacturing decisions, the family legacies, and the business strategy behind the headlines, subscribe to MotorsIn, because this industry is changing faster than it looks, and Tiffin may have just given us the clearest sign yet of what the next chapter could become.